Hey guys, lesson 3.7, using percents. Our learning target today is to be able to find a percent of any quantity and understand what that number represents. In our warm-up today, I'm just going to ask you, what is 1% of 100, 20% of 100, 1% of 200, and what is 20% of 200? Go ahead and take a moment to do that. In number 1, we should be able to easily see that 1% of 100 is 1. And in number 2, 20% of 100 is 20. If we increase our amount to 200, that would double each of these values. So 1% of 200 is 2, and 20% of 200 is 40. Uses of percents. Percents are often used to describe part of a whole, such as a budget, a test score, or a population. They're often used for discounts or sale prices, like Coupon Crazy earlier in this chapter, and they're often used for taxes or tips. If we want to use a percent, if we want to find a specific percent from a quantity, we use the following formula: R equals P times Q, where P is the percent in decimal form and Q is the quantity or the whole. R is the resulting quantity that represents that percent of that whole. So as we take a look, we're going to kind of go through some examples. We can use the percent to describe part of a whole, such as a budget. Here we see a circle graph that shows a family budget. In this case, it's the Johnsons' family budget. We can see that they spend 5% on their savings, 9% on other, 14% on entertainment, 4% on their insurance and pension, and so on, 33% on their housing. Here we say if their yearly income is $87,550, how much do they spend on entertainment each year? $87,550 represents their entire budget, the whole circle. We're looking at the entertainment portion. We're finding 14% of that $87,550. If we want to use our formula, our P, percent as a decimal, is 0.14, our total quantity, 87,550. The resulting quantity then could be found by multiplying 0.14 times 87,550, where we get a value of $12,257. We can actually describe part of a whole like test scores. For example, if I tell you that Jeremiah earned 82% on the most recent math test, if there were 50 points on the test, how many did Jeremiah earn? We're looking to find 82% of 55. That's what he earned on the math test. Our percent would be represented by 0.82. Our quantity, our whole, would be represented by a 55. So the result would be 0.82 times 55, which arrives us to 45.1. Now, it's unlikely that Jeremiah earned 45.1, so we would do some rounding and say that he earned about 45 points on the test. We can also use percents when we're talking about describing a population. For example, in the 2010 census here in Minnesota, 4.7% of Minnesotans identified themselves as Latino. If the population of Minnesota in 2010 was 5,303,925, how many Latinos were there? Well, we know it's 4.7% of the population. So we would take our percentage as a decimal, 0.047. Our quantity would be our actual whole population. The resulting quantity then would be the 24,925.275. Now, since we're talking about how many people, this decimal answer might not make sense. We would round this to the nearest and say that there are about 24,925 Latinos. This represents 4.7% of the Minnesota population. We can also see examples for discounts or sale prices. For example, if Sharon is buying a new pair of jeans, they normally cost $35.99. She has a 15% off coupon. How much will she pay? We need to find 15% and subtract it. What percent of what are we trying to find? 15% of $35.99. Write the percent as a decimal, 0.15. Define the original quantity, the original cost of the jeans. Set up the formula. We find the resulting quantity. What is that 15% discount? In this case, the resulting quantity is 5.3985, but since we're talking about money, we're going to have to deal with some rounding. The discount will always be rounded down. Store will always make as much money as possible, so they'll take off a smaller amount of money. So here our discount would be automatically rounded down to $5.39. We actually need to subtract that to give the amount paid, $30.60 paid. Percents are used a lot for taxes and tips. For example, when I went out to eat with my family, the restaurant automatically added an 18% tip. Got a little extra letter here. They automatically added an 18% tip to our $65.82 bill. How much did we pay total? If we take a look, we need to find 18% and add it. So what percent of what? 18% of $65.82. We want to write out our percent as a decimal, 0.18. Define our original quantity, that's the 65.82. The 65.82. There we go, 65.82. We would want to set up our formula. The resulting quantity, the resulting tip, would be equal to 0.18 times 65.82. We're going to find the 18% tip. It's $11.8476. Now again, this doesn't really make sense for dollars because we know that our money system doesn't go past the 100th place. So here we would actually need to round it. A tax or a tip will always be rounded up. Again, the store wants to make as much money as possible, so they will round up for money that they're going to be taking in. So the tip that is going to be added is $11.85. We actually need to follow through and add the tip on to give the total amount paid, $77.67. And we are done. Have a great day.